to support LGBTQ plus youth, to support just young, huge amount of young people who are going through really rough time right now in this crazy world in 2026. And we got this idea to start a podcast, an honest conversation with voices who, by their biography, it's not about biography, but by their life and work, can share some points on how can we support each other. And for me, it's definitely to honor Polish. And that was the first name of the podcast. And then right after that meeting, I came home and Rolling Waves just arrived as a name. Long story short, that's how it started.
And we'll go.
Yeah, I remember like one of the things you mentioned was about like honoring Wallace and how like going forward, all of us in our own way, they'll have like a way to kind of, honor Hollis and just kind of in everything that we do. And then you texted me, you were like, I have to think for the podcast as Rolling Waves. And I was like, oh my goodness, like that's such like a perfect, name for the podcast, because I know for me, like kind of when I think about like life and when I think about death, I often think about kind of like the highs and lows of kind of the ocean, like returning to the ocean. So for me, it kind of like connected in that regard, and just kind of thinking about like compassion and how like connectedness, and thinking about how do we navigate through like life's highs and lows. I know like your strength has been inspiring to me. Just your ability to just kind of like try to find something, always looking for the positive and just kind of honoring that memory. So just like always very proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. What do they call it in psychology when you always look for them? Positive.
So really,
I'm afraid they call it spiritual shortcut or something.
I don't know. I never thought of it that way, but I think that that's an interesting idea. But I do like the core allegory of the ocean. And you and I talked about this a little bit, but I think that the sea is our mother. It's where we all came from. And the best relationship that you can have with the ocean is to face her. Always to face her, never to turn your back to the sea. It's safer.
It is.
And it also, there's so many things that you can learn about what is coming by how close you're connected to that. So in terms of what you're both talking about and your ability to look towards the light, look out to the sea and see beyond, see the edge of the horizon and what is out there. And as a surfer, that's where I live, is in looking out to the ocean and watching the waves and the different types, because you can have a tumultuous wave that's too big, that's dangerous, that is out of control, that is chaotic. Or you can have a cleanly articulated wave that you can see how it's working, how it's coming towards you. And those are two kind of life metaphors where you see a big range of chaos coming towards you. And how are you going to prepare for that? Are you going to work to swim into it, which is what you must do if you're in the water? You can't just let it crash into you. You want to swim into it and feel that power and then rise out, come out, and keep going.
Yes, sir. All right, so here is our first wave team. May I introduce you to our listeners?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Here we go. Our first wave is someone who works with light for a living, not just visually, but philosophically. Tim Girvin. Did I say it right?
Yes.
Is a legendary brand strategist, designer, and creative director whose work has shaped some of the most iconic identities in culture. But what makes Tim truly unique is that his work has always been about modern logos and aesthetics. It has been about meaning. Tim designs not just what we see, but how we feel. Is it right that your work is rooted in something deeper than branding? It is about essence, about what gives a thing its soul, and how light moves for form that makes perfect beginning.
Mm. Yeah, I think that all of us are, and you and I were talking about this as well, but all of us are connected by what our relationship is. And the root of relationship is the Latin word relatus, which means to carry as in a story. So in a way, my connection with the two of you is about what do I carry to you? And then what do I carry away? And that idea of reflection and reflexiveness is something that is powerful for me. Is what is my story? How do I tell it? Who's it for? What does it sound like? And who cares? And then to you, what is your story and what does it sound like? What does it feel like? What is the character of it? And what do I carry away? And that idea of meaning is really profound as well, because meaning is mind. That is the link to that word. And, but it also gets down to a very simple sentence, which is, what do you mean? What do you mean? And so when I talk to people about their business or look at a brand, I'm trying to get to that. What do you mean? What is the meaning of what's happening here? What's not just on the surface, but what lies beneath? What is underneath the surface? Because that's where the soul is. And the soul, I hate to keep bringing up these word histories for you,
No,
but
I love it. As a historian, I love it.
Yeah.
I took 5 years in Latin, so
Yeah, there you go.
I love the Latin.
Soul is a ancient word for sea. It's a Proto-Germanic word, probably 3,500 to 5,000 years old, and it is seal, which means sea, but it's in the Norse tradition or the Germanic tradition is journey across water. So it's, in a way, if you look at it from a Greek or a Latin perspective, that is the final journey that we all take. But in reality, how I tend to think about it is the soul is a manifestation of the journey of a person, an enterprise, an idea, a great idea. I had this incredible idea about doing this, and this is the beginning of my journey. This is where the soul is. And a lot of times I will have workshops or team discussions or Kickstarter sessions or all these different ways of trying to connect with people. And invariably, that is the key question for me is, what is the soul of this? And people are like, what do you mean by that? And of course, I have to get into that.
Yeah.
But it does come down to the profound, personal, deep, authentic, psychic motivation for being.
Mhm.
And what are you doing? How are you being?
Yeah, I feel like that kind of makes me think of like kind of that great I am question and kind of just meditation is something that I'm really into. And one of the things that I think, asking for, I think some people might ask is like if a person is saying or they're kind of feeling kind of lost and they're kind of having a hard time maybe finding that soul like within themselves, I would say maybe how do you not only find the soul within brands, but also find the soul within yourself? What is that journey like?
Well, I think the journey is key, and that brings you back to this perspective of being in the water, being in the ocean, looking out over the waves. You know, in a storm, all you see is chaos and waves, and it can be quite terrifying.
Mm.
And but then there can be a moment of calmness, and then the sun will begin to reveal itself, and you can begin to get a perspective on things. And I think that the journey part, and particularly the documentation, the journal part of the journey, that is really important for people to try to track and contain the content of those experiences and begin to write, gather images, gather flowers, leaves, whatever they may be, and put them into a tangible, touchable object that is a journal. And this can be, I've done journals that have bark in them, that have leaves, crushed flowers, bits of litter from the streets in some country where I'm at, or a funny little illustration that I found someplace. And that is a moment that you can gather this impression, and that is momentum. So as you have a string of moments that lead into this movement forward, then you begin to develop a sense of journey and where you are in the journey. And it's okay to be lost. It's okay to be lost. That what you see when you are lost is very different than what you see when you are found. And I think that I have a belief that being lost is actually more profound than being found, in that you're open to a degree that is uniquely empowering and insightful because you see differently. There's a couple of pieces that I've written on this idea of being lost, and it's how do you spend time in a environment where you are when you don't know where you are, and how do you find your way back? And the closeness of the journey and your perception during this time is uniquely distinct. It is heightened because maybe there's fear there, and that's part of that. And you have to experience that and then make your way back. But the journal de jour, that idea is the hour. It's the moment. It's capturing the moment and beginning to string those together. And then eventually you look back and you go, ah, I remember that time. I remember what happened.
It just requires to stay present in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and go right through it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. It's hard. It's a lot of the good things in life are hard. They're not easy. And ease, I think, is forgettable. Hard is unforgettable.
That's true.
Definitely.
I definitely wouldn't change anything or get rid of the hard parts of my life, because that's where I rise and become a better person and get that connection with God and myself.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say when you were talking about kind of the power of getting lost and how it's okay to be lost, and I just have received that. But also, I think a lot of people need to hear that. I think that's kind of affirming to hear someone that is very accomplished in life say it's okay to be lost. It makes me think of, I can't remember if it was like Emerson or Thoreau, but the quote of like, once a day I wander and I try to get lost. And so I really appreciated that metaphor, and I'll kind of being okay with being lost, and then that part that you shared about, and then finding your way back and kind of being able to look back and have that perspective of kind of what you experienced and what you've been through. And so just want to say, like, I think that's really just affirming and appreciative to hear that there is value in those times. There you are.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I also think that you can be lost every day. There can be a time in every day where you are lost and you are trying to take the steps, as we have talked about, the step by step, the stride on stride, the measured movement, the focus on the walk. I think about different cities that I've been lost in, or different wilderness areas that I've been lost in the Mount Baker wilderness, in the Mount Stewart wilderness, in Tokyo, in uh, in Paris, in the fog, wandering around, and then I get lost, and it's like, wait, where am I? And that's part of the moment. That is where this attunement comes in, where you begin to really see. You slow down. You take your time. There was a guy that I used to hike with and climb with. He was a climber, and I used to climb with him. And we went into a wilderness area, and his orientation was called summit bagging, meaning that his goal was to bag or to summit as many rocks as he could, mountains. Sometimes these are day hikes, sometimes these are 3-day hikes. And what I noticed about it, being with him, was that he went so fast that there was no close in observation. There was no study. There was no care in the moment. And I think that that has proven to be probably the most powerful tool for me in moving from lost to discovery to finding the proverbial light. Is that string, that sequence of movements.
How have the waves in your own life shaped your work and your vision?
Well, I think that I think there are a couple of things that are important to know, and that when you're a child, like 2 years old, and you go out into the water, maybe your parents are around, maybe they aren't, and you get knocked over by a wave. And then let's say you have your little wading boots on, and they fill up with water, and then you're trying to get out of the water, and then panic and fear ensue. Um, that learning about the fear of the ocean was something that I was exposed to early, but in a loving way. My father and I used to go to the Jersey Shore when he was a captain of surgery at Trenton, New Jersey, Fort Monmouth. And we would walk out into the water and the waves would be coming in, and then we'd get deeper and deeper, and then the waves would come. And he wouldn't stop. He'd keep walking until the waves knocked us over underwater. So I would be the one who would be above the water. Then we both get knocked over. And then it became kind of a joyful thing. Then I realized that there's sort of a world beneath the waves. And I'm not talking about fish or sea creatures, but it's the currents and the movements that happen underneath. And that became a place of joy for me, was being underwater and experiencing these pulls and this flow, this fluency, the fluidity of this flow. And then you begin to understand, okay, so what I'm experiencing now underwater actually has something to do with that mass of water that's on top of me. And then you begin to learn to navigate that and to swim into that and swim over the top of that. But as you get to a board, or you're using fins and body surfing or a small board or a long board or whatever it may be, then you begin to study the waves that are 300, 400,000 feet away. And you begin to see them cresting out there. And you begin to see and sense the scale of their power. You know, how big is that going to be when it gets to me? And in the beginning, that's quite scary because, you know, to have a wave that's 12, 15 feet above your head, the amount of force that's involved in a wave of that size is significant in terms of energy, kilojoules. So, but then eventually you realize that if you can slide underneath the wave, then you can feel her power. You can feel the energy that she brings, but you're passing through it. You become part of it. And then eventually when you learn to take a board and start to ride on the waves, then there's a whole other set of mechanisms as to understanding how the sea draws out, the swell comes in, the power of the water pulling out empowers the wave that's coming in. And it becomes almost like a calligraphy, almost like a beautiful turbine or energy movement. And you begin to be able to read farther and farther out. And then you go farther and farther out to experience that. And your fear begins to change. So it is.
To fade. So you have more control and connection, and you can.
Well, if you spend the time in her, in the ocean, in the waves, and you are above and below the waves, then you begin to understand how she works and what that represents. And so that is the key, is the learning and the knowledge.
Keep going.
Yeah.
I appreciate just kind of the visual imagery of that too. I'm actually from Virginia Beach, so East Coast, smaller waves, but you know, I have that similar experience of that, you know, kind of walking out into the water and getting knocked down and then finding joy in it. One of the things that one of my mentors told me when I was working on my doctorate degree is like, when you go to graduate school, he said, you know, writing is like a sport. It's like, you're going to start off, you're not going to be so great at it, but over time you'll keep working at it and then you'll find the fun in it. And so I kind of like saw that when you mentioned like, you know, then you start to find that joy in kind of the waves or nature in that ocean.
Yeah. She still beats me up with some frequency, because you get out and you think you've got a wave, and then it turns out that she's decided that no, you do not. And so what happens is the tail of your board gets flipped over the top of you, and then you get pushed down underneath. And so for a 72-year-old, that is quite battering, but joyous. I always come out of the water feeling like I've been made more alive,
Yeah, absolutely.
partially because it's so cold.
Take my cold showers every day and then great.
Yeah.
I can do a spritz, the cold spritz.
Yeah, that's good.
Still used to the Atlantic.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, question about branding for your team, because we talked about psychology, philosophy, life, and your passions. Give us an advice. In a world that is constantly telling people who they should be, how do you help brands and people find who they actually are?
I think that the one piece of advice that I usually offer to brand teams or enterprises or people that are starting their business is to be true, show freely to your world. And that is to be authentic, to try to get to the truth of who you are, and to tell that story transparently. So I think that is foundational business advice, but it's also something that I take to heart in terms of my own life and the work that I do. And it's also about passion. So here's another etymology for you. Brand is a 5,000-year-old Proto-Indo-European root that is means fire. And so when I think of brand, I'm looking for passion. I'm looking for commitment. I'm looking for that ignition, that spark, that where is that? And how hard do I have to dig to find that spark, that point of inspiration, that inhalation? Spiritus. I hope I'm answering these questions. I feel like I'm sort of wandering around a little bit.
No,
No,
you are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
understand.
incredible. Yeah. Much appreciation. Just so good and humble.
Do you agree with the statement that your work holds a lot of light and shine?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about it, and we know that light only exists in relationship with shadow. So if we talk about life, how life taught you that creativity comes from both.
Well, I think that the piece for me is there is beauty in the shadow and there's beauty in darkness that really can only be balanced against whole illumination. So when I think about when I do a drawing or a piece with a brush or something, what I'm looking for is the black strokes and their interplay with the light. So the paper, when you draw on a piece of paper, if you have a piece of paper, imagine this. You have a piece of paper that is blank. And when you look at that, it is a void, a formless void. But if I take a brush or I take a a grease pencil or I take a marker, I can completely change that. I can completely change your perception of it with one mark. And I think that when you consider this idea of light and dark, that is where it is. There's the absence and there is the form. There is void and then there is the formed. There's the formless and then there is the realized object. And that's really magic. That is a root of magic. Is the sigil, the signal, the mark is the beginning, the foundation of how you translate nothingness to somethingness. And what is the story of that? What does that mean?
So as a creator, you part of the process, connection with universe, with the moment, with the light, with the presence, or you creator, you are in charge, you decide. What is it?
Well, I think that the spontaneous and the instinctive is really almost more of a spirit-based impression that one has. So that is deeper, that is more soulful, that is more a reaction to something. So that when I do a drawing, I listen to a story that you tell me, and then I will draw that story. But what I'm doing is I'm drawing the story out from you and drawing that story and creating a framework for how others might understand that story.
Yeah, that makes sense. You have this beautiful connection with intuition, strong intuition. You follow your intuition, you trust it. How did that start?
Probably my mother. Yeah, my mother was a very powerful force in my life as a creatrix. She was a painter, a pianist. She was widely creative and an extraordinarily open woman. But she taught me to kind of trust in myself and to trust my impression of what I was experiencing and to look at how can I translate that? How can I see something, I experience something, how do I translate that? What is the emotional character of what that is? Because her painting was all about the moment, the impression, a natural impression. And I think I pointed you to some of her paintings, so you might have seen them, but she had an incredible sense of color and the vitality of color. And so I think that she's the one who really taught me about that idea of using my kind of deeper sense of a person or a place or a series of encounters and what is the meaning of that? What lies beneath that? So gut and instinct play into that because this is the part of the whole experiential legacy that you have. So your insights, your insights are really tied to how you see in. And your understanding is, as you probably know, your interstanding. So it's your how you stand in relationship to something, how you frame your awareness about your sensate circle, your experience in a moment, how sensate you are, how sensorial, how sensational you are.
That's a gift to feel everything that's given.
Yeah, maybe, maybe.
But you also listen. That's how.
To listen is to lean in. That's what we do. We lean in to listen.
All right, I'll let Kale ask a couple questions. It's 2:56.
The last couple questions, and then
Well, I would say, I guess, kind of like one thing that kind of thinking about like different people and kind of around kind of this journey and listening. I know, like for me, my mom would always say like patience is a virtue. Like I think I've learned to be more patient over time. I think it's a kind of a skill set that I've hopefully worked on kind of adopting. I would say kind of for people that find it maybe kind of that challenging to maybe take that space or to take that pause to listen, even if it's going through the process of meditation and finding that calmness and that stillness. I would say, how have you kind of learned to kind of be able to have that listening and be able to kind of learn what would your process look like? What would you say to people trying to develop
I
that?
think that really does come back to list or to lean and what your inclination is. So first of all, as a listener, you have to be engaged or connected to the degree that what you're experiencing is a desirable piece. So the real question may be, how curious are you? And I think that there's some people that I know that are very curious and they're always kind of leaning into things and trying to learn more in that moment. But I think that to your comment, the listening requires silence and meaningful, attentive silence. And what degree you're willing to pursue that. I think some people are impatient and they don't want to listen. They don't have time to listen. They don't care about listening. But others among us, over time, you begin to realize that you might have missed something. And if you're curious about a person, then you're going to want to watch them very closely and pay attention to them. Attention is another Latin. It's the reach out. The tendon, it's the reach. So listening is to lean, attention is to reach.
So we should listen to what wants to emerge rather forcing something to exist. Should we do that?
I think sometimes what I've noticed is people tend to stomp on other people when they're listening. They don't let people finish. And what I just did actually was fairly close to that in terms of what you were just saying. And then I kind of jumped on the tail end of that, which was rude and insensitive. But I think that engagement and embracement and the leaning and the reach out, those are all kind of childish things. And I think that all of us need to remember that. The child that we have
Keep it alive.
in us, keep it open. I think that is a lot of children are surprisingly open. And as they accumulate experiences, they become closed. And the more we give them opportunities to be open to new exploration or new ideas, and how do we bring them into that? Did you see that? Did you notice that? Should we touch that? That is a way that you begin to create that willingness to explore and to open those things.
Those are waves of curiosity.
Yes. Rolling waves of curiosity.
Rolling waves.
Yes,
Coming on.
indeed. Rolling waves.
One more.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about that. You have this huge, enormous amount of projects everywhere. How? No, that's not the question. Casinos, hospitality, books, art, history, traveling, horses, waves, dogs, human beings, and everything in between. Is that a language you speak and you translate art into hospitality design?
I think there are two things that are important. One we just discussed, which is curiosity. How curious are you? What risk are you willing to take to explore that curiosity? How will that happen? And then the other is the willingness to sort of explore that idea of coming into these things. So when I think about hospitality, or I think about dining, or I think about horses, or I think about dogs, or I think about humans, I think about sensation, about touch, about that contact. And that is kind of where I live. So if I consider the sensational character of a relationship, the storytelling of a human or a place or a environment, I'm really looking for that holism. So if I work on designing a restaurant, I'm not concerned with the logo. I'm really concerned with what happens when I open the door. What is the scent? When I walk into the space, what happens to me? What's the floor like? What can I touch? If you ever go on a walk with me, you'll notice that I touch a lot of things as I'm walking, because I feel like that's kind of my bounding. That's me sort of sensing this space, sensing the area around myself. So I think that is enough, maybe.
Yes. Good. All right.
I love that. I love that connection. And
First
curiosity.
wave. Huh?
First wave. Thank you. We are so
Thank you
grateful
so much.
for you making
Yeah.
time.
Yes,
and
we are.
talking with us
Absolutely.
today.
Absolutely. I'm happy we could connect, all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Oh my
Awesome.
God. That was,
Thank
oh
you
my
so
God, I
much.
learned so much. Thank you.